Alright guys, welcome back. GM Light here. Today we're talking about the Creep tapes. So with the announcement of the new Creep TV show, I'm going to be explaining what the Creep tapes are, the title of the new show itself. If you aren't familiar with the series, the basic premise is of the first movie, a terminally dying man pays money to a photographer for the day to film his life and do a day in the life type thing. But through the day, the guy who hired him turns to be weirder. You get more reveals, puts him in uncomfortable situations, and the whole thing unravels from there. And I will be spoiling both the first two movies, so if you don't want any spoilers, maybe click away. But of course, the reveal of that first movie is that this guy is a serial killer. Mark Duplass's character of Joseph was tricking him the whole time, manipulating him, putting him through these weird situations, and filming him for his own gratification so that he could kill him in the end. And what the Creep tapes are is that once he's killed Aaron, the photographer that he hired, you see him watching the clips back. He puts it in a DVD case and then calls somebody else looking for a job opening, and it's revealed that he has an entire library full of tapes. They're named after different people, different things, so you can assume that he has done this several times before and he's going to continue to do it. I think that was one of the best parts of the movie, was the main reveal that Joseph had all these other victims, that he'd done this before, and you could assume that this is a regular thing for him. And the implications of that are so interesting. The idea that all of these tapes are basically more Creep movies. Think about Joseph, you don't really know when he's telling the truth or lying. Most of what he does is he has fun toys with his victims while lying. You see at the beginning of the second movie, he has another situation where he does the same thing, becomes friends with this guy, and then kills him. And then when you move on to the main plot of 2, it's actually basically him confessing to it, but because it sounds so outlandish and wild, Sarah, the videographer that he hired this time, just doesn't believe him the entire time. Meanwhile, he's saying things that you don't know whether they're actually true or not. He tells stories of other victims and basically fully confesses to being a serial killer, but you don't know which parts he's embellishing, which parts he's telling the truth about, because there probably is a good amount of truth to what he's telling. This show is going to be basically an entire anthology series, each episode being one of his different Creep tapes. A new story of him manipulating and eventually killing somebody. I'm sure that they'll find new and unique situations to put this guy in to make it interesting. This is a show that obviously could get really redundant if they don't change things up and do something interesting with that premise. But overall, this is exactly what it is. And it's a very good premise for a show like this, because otherwise, I wasn't initially sold on the idea of Creep being turned into a TV series rather than just doing a third movie. But hearing this premise, this sounds really interesting to me, and I hope it's awesome. What's also interesting is we could probably get more insight into the Creep as a person, maybe find out more of real things about him, because you really can never tell when he's lying or telling the truth. You don't know if his name's Joseph. He assumes the name of Aaron in the second movie, the victim of the first movie, so maybe when he moves on, he uses the last victim's name as his name. He has this odd propensity, it seems, to take on the traits of the people that he kills. It almost seems like he thinks when he kills somebody that he's absorbing a part of them. In the second movie, he's taken Aaron's name, he's grown a beard, stuff that Aaron had. And I think that that's a very deliberate choice. We're probably going to get to see how he works a fair bit more. It seems like overall most of his goal is just torment, and as for his own entertainment, really doesn't seem like it's based on anything other than that. He just enjoys doing this. And I mean, even in the second movie, you see that he starts not to, and he needs something to rejuvenate his inspiration as a serial killer. And that's basically what it's all about. But I bet we'll see in these Creep tapes different ways in which Joseph wormed his way into somebody's life, different professions that he hired. Like there's one tape that says boating instructor, so I assume he probably paid for lessons and asked to film them, and then ended up killing that instructor. Probably made it too personal, maybe tried to become friends with him. He works in very interesting ways, and he's just overall one of the most compelling horror characters from recent memory. I think he's already kind of cemented his horror icon status, especially Peach Fuzz the Mask. I feel like that's a very iconic image from these movies. And the idea of getting a whole lot more, getting deeper, maybe each episode kind of getting into who this guy actually is, where he comes from, where he gets this money from, how he's able to get away with it. That all comes across really interesting to me, and I hope we get that. Am I a bit disappointed that it's not a third movie? Tiny bit. And I'd still like for them to eventually come back around to making that third movie, but at this point it's been about 7 years since we've had that second Creep movie, so we're well overdue for something new. I was honestly starting to think that maybe we would never get to see Mark Duplass as the Creep again, So I'm very happy to see that we actually will, and we're probably going to have it soon. Seems like they already have it completely done. They're just sitting on maybe a Netflix deal or something to make it happen and fully release it. And I can't complain about that because I love this franchise. I love this character. And any kind of more detail we could get on him, I'm all ears for. I just hope that we don't get unsatisfying answers to some of these questions about who he is. But overall, exploring these creep tapes, these different victims he's had over the years, seeing if maybe some of the stories he told in Creep 2 were true, I'm just all ears for it. I'm definitely in, sold. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I'd love to hear, are you a fan of this franchise? Are you interested in the Creep tapes? Let me know. I'm GM Light. Have a good one.